Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Oh gosh. So today is just like a jam-packed day of what feels like all of the calls, all of the things. I just finished up a Ucoachia class and I was working on some audience segmentation, which is always fun and something that I taught earlier in my Ucoachia classes was like, how do you actually take your audience and divide them up in a way that makes sense? And today, one of the questions that came up was, how do you divide your audience for a launch? And there's actually I wanted to share what we talked about specific to that question, but then I also wanted to dive in as well too about just like overall like audience division. How do you do that? What does that look like? And really just dive into some key takeaways and tangible things that you can implement when you're thinking about sending emails out to your list. Now, overall speaking, the way that I like to look at email marketing is relationship based. So if you were to come through my front door, I wouldn't, go through the process of being like, hi, Susan, it's so nice to meet you. And then literally turn on my heel, come back and say, all right, so, I sell XYZ. Would you like to sign up for home and auto insurance through me? Like, da 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 da. This is why you need life insurance. Like, I would never be like, hello, welcome, let me sell to you, right? There's a relationship that needs to form. And, a lot of times, and there's just so many variables, right? A lot of times people come in at different points in their journey, especially into your email list. They may be coming in as someone who's like, I don't know who this girl is, but I like her vibe on Instagram. I just want to see what she's all about. And then also there's people who come into your world who may more necessarily be somebody who has, been part of your world for a while. They're like, I know Ashley, I know what she's about. I know she's got a kiddo, like all these things. And I'm like ready to kind of explore more, see what she's all about. And then there's other people who are like, I'm actually really interested in hiring Ashley, but I'm just not sure. So let me just take a look at her emails, see how she writes those, right? Totally different ways of looking at that. And so, based off of like people coming into your world, where they're at, is sometimes it's not easy to like figure out, well, what journey does everyone need to go on, right? It's almost like one funnel doesn't fit all, but at the same time, the funnel strategy that I teach, the welcome sequence that I taught in our Ucoachia class, is really designed to take people through a concise journey from start to finish. So regardless, of where they're coming in, how they come in, they're going to be able to feel valued, loved, seen, heard. They're going to know who you are and what you stand for. They're going to know like what you exactly help people with. And everyone's going to kind of come to that same landing page, that same base. And that's kind of the goal of a welcome sequence, is to get everyone on the same track, up to speed, up to date, like you're all in the same container, the same boat. Now let's move forward, right? And so when we're thinking about audience division and specific to launches, this is where that question comes in of like, okay, I'm going to launch something. Do I just like basically select all and send to everybody? Yes and no, right? It's kind of one of those things that I kind of posed of like, I play around with the idea again of that relationship of, again, would you want to come into somebody's world? And I've had this happen to me even as someone who's received emails where I've come into someone's world and the first thing that I get is I get a welcome email and then like a sales email because they're in the middle of a launch. It happens, right? And it's something as well too that, I totally understand if you're, if you've ever been part of like my world in general, like, there's a good possibility you've gotten a sequence email and you've also gotten a campaign from me, maybe potentially even on the same day. There's some kind of variables, pieces, and things that, people can be in multiple journeys and still feel like they're still in the same thing. Now, you can protect people. You can keep people in separate containers, which a lot of times, we'll do. And then you can also just kind of go with the flow. Now, here's the thing, though. I prefer to protect people, especially when you think about like a large sales launch campaign thing. Because if somebody is going through one specific journey over here and they're like getting value and they're feeling loved and they're learning more about you, and then they're also getting bombarded with this whole sales sequence, it can feel like a lot where you're like, I'm still trying to get to know you, what you're doing and who you're for. And then over here, you're like, but join my group coaching program, join my mastermind, join my thing, da, 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 da. And like, it can just feel a lot. So what I recommend is containerizing. And it can be as simple as new audience versus existing audience, right? A lot of times I'll talk about non-buyer and buyer. This time we're going to talk about length of time when someone's part of your world. If somebody is new in your world and you're in the middle of a launch, I would keep them in the new world. Now, one of the suggestions I had made is in that first initial welcome email, you can say, hey, P.S., I'm right now in the process of launching this amazing group coaching program. If you want to learn more, click here and I'll make sure you get those emails like as you go through this. And you can like give them that option to opt in to that sequence, essentially, or that sales campaigns over there, and like take that tag off to go over there, which I know we're getting a little bit into like the tech side. But just thinking about it of like someone's here, they're going to keep going down this path, but like, hey, we have this other path. If you just like want to scooch over here and you want to get those two, you can, but I'm going to like exclude you from that because like we want you to stay on your same path. I don't want to overwhelm you. Like you're new. I don't want you to feel like overwhelmed. So I like to look at it as length of time, new versus existing. Your existing audience, I highly recommend keeping in that same funnel. Your new audience, you can go through the process of essentially still keeping them on their same path of where they're intended to go. One of the things that a lot of times, people ask me is, when you're going through the process of planning out your launches, you're planning out how these emails are getting sent to, a lot of times we're like, we don't want people to miss out, right? Like we get into that mentality of like, if we have 1,000 people on our list, like I don't want the select 50 people to miss out. If somebody was, and this was a point, one of the coaching members I was on the call made was like, if they're really interested in learning more how to work with me, it's visible, right? It's on my website. It'll be here. It'll be there. And I think that's one of the pieces as well too, is remembering that like email marketing allows for you to remind people. It allows for you to be able to essentially like bring people back into your world and just remind that you exist. And a lot of times, people will see, your name in their inbox and be like, oh my gosh, I saved that live video from her last week, but I didn't go and watch it. And there's things that happen that a lot of times don't necessarily correlate with the email that really makes it worthwhile just to send the email as well, right, to that audience. And so I always recommend just, again, thinking about like, how can you provide the best experience, the best relationship, and how would you want to be like, I don't want to say, well, yeah, basically like, how would you want to be on the other side of that? Like in your inbox, like how would you want to be on the receiving end of it? And just thinking about that really allows for you to be able to like nurture and cater that relationship and answer these questions around like, do you send the full list or do you just send to your existing audience versus your new audience and what that looks like? And so there's just a lot of pieces, right? And email marketing has so many variables. There's so many different things you can do. And, there's not necessarily a right or wrong. It's really just about your viewpoint, your perspective, you understanding your audience, because everybody is different. Every audience is different. The cadence, the way that you show up. There's one of my clients who specifically is very like, no BS, straight to the point, like very much so like tells it how it is. And so like, we just send all the things, right? Because it's just like, that's the vibe, like that's the goal, like that's just the way that person shows up, as opposed to some of my other clients who are very more so soft-spoken like me, where it's just like, okay, I just like want to make sure you're taken care of, and like that kind of vibe. And there's nothing wrong with either of them. So I just want to encourage you that despite like my opinion in regards to a perspective on this, you have the ability to do your own thing, experiment, see what works, see what doesn't. Like it could work really well for one launch, and then maybe you try it again or you try it a different way. Just go through the process of experimenting. So I just wanted to go ahead and share that with you guys today. I hope that was insanely helpful, just to kind of give a different perspective on like audience management specific to a launch when you're thinking about your new versus existing subscribers, and what that looks like for you. So I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, amazing rest of your Tuesday. I know that there is an upcoming workshop all specific around offers. So if you are in the process of, creating your offer, if you're in the process of wanting to create an offer that's like, oh my gosh, yes, this is what I want, this is what I desire, there's going to be more details here inside of the group. I believe Nancy just recently did a live on it as well. So you can go and check that out. And just learn more about like what that looks like for you, catering that offer specific to your ideal client. So I hope you guys have an amazing Tuesday, and I'll talk to you later. See ya.